Very, very cool. Okay, we are live, but I'm going to go ahead and get started. All right, so welcome to the Better Meetings workshop. This is the first one in the series. I'm going to talk a little bit more in a minute about what inspired this series because it is really important. Today, we are going to go over the importance of having a clear meeting goal for whatever standing meetings you all have. It's really important to know what is the purpose of this meeting before you get on Zoom, before you work to gather people. You want to make sure that you know exactly the reading why you're hosting this session, right? We're then going to get into developing a prep and a post meeting workflow, not just attacking it with vibes, but really having some structure around the way that we approach the preparation and then also our follow up actions. And then next, we're going to talk about streamlining your resources and tools. So, when it comes to the things that you use, how you prepare, what systems, what tools you're using, all of that stuff matters to make sure that you have a solid process around you, the way that you host meetings. And then last, I always like to end a webinar with a Q&A. If you have any questions for me, feel free to drop them in the chat as we go along. If you're joining us from LinkedIn, I'm going to share some information at the end of this that where you can email me a question, and I'm always happy to answer after the session. All right, so thank you for attending today. If we have not shared space before, my name is Alice Foy. I am the founder of The Digital Jane. I started the company in 2018. It's hard to believe that it has already been so long, but I had this dream after running around on production for years about helping women to establish like a solid foundation in their business and not just I wasn't to a point yet where I really understood how that connected so much to operations and to the systems and the processes. I just wanted to give them the support. Like that's where I was at that point. And a lot of my peers that had started businesses in 2013 had gotten to this point where they were booming, and they were like, I just need help. I keep hiring people, nothing's working out. And so I wanted to create a way for them to have the support that they needed, but in a flexible way. And so that's where the idea for the Digital Jane was born. It was another vertical in addition to Jane Ella that was around for many years before that. Like I just always had this dream of helping and improving, the betterment of women. And so since we started as a business support agency, we served over 20 founders, worked with a lot of solopreneurs one-on-one before we realized you know what? It's a lot deeper than stepping in as a virtual assistant and doing tasks for them because they would always need more. It was always like, you're giving me a task, but you don't have the resources for me to do it. You're giving me the task, but I don't have anything to follow. You're giving me the task, but all the information is in your brain. And so over time, our work transitioned into operations management. It then transitioned into operations and team development, which is what we do now. So instead of us managing the day-to-day operations work, we now come in and build, the resources that teams need to do work better together. And so I'm really like excited to have you all here. I have a personal goal to get better at facilitating trainings, to get better at public speaking. And so hosting these trainings and sharing the knowledge that I've acquired over the course of my career and then also just within the Digital Jane is really special to me. You will have the opportunity after this workshop to share some feedback with us so that we can continue to get better. So I shared a little bit about my vision, but basically we just want to help women bring all of the pieces together between their staff, their systems, and their processes. It's really important that we're building on solid foundations in order for our businesses to be sustainable. My mission is, again, to put power behind the women who are doing the work every single day, from nonprofit organizations to, impact-led agencies to, service-based companies. We're really passionate about supporting people who are doing the work every day, and we just want to make sure that they're set up in the best possible way. As the teams continue to grow, technology is ever evolving, just really putting some process and thought and intention around the way that work is done. Okay, so I think this is important context to have before we get into the format of the meeting. I think our approach to team operations in the like development in general, I'm always thinking about three different like main components, right? First of all, you have the people that are doing the work. We're always prioritizing and putting people first. These are the people that are pushing the work forward. These are the people that are investing their time, their expertise, their knowledge. And so everything that I do and everything that I touch is with the intention of making it better for the people who are doing the work on a day-to-day basis. I don't believe in doing pie in the sky development where eventually and on a greater scheme of things, there's going to be this magical, perfect person that's going to come in and manage it. I want to do it based off of like reality, right? And so I center, people in the team behind all of the moving pieces at the center of everything that we do. I then say we prioritize process development over tech tools because it's really important. So I'm old school. I want to know how something works. I want to help teams get out of the habit of winging things so that they feel more confident in showing up. And so when I'm thinking about process development, I feel like in order for a tech tool, any system tool, whatever you want to call it, to work efficiently, you have to know what the process is. And so then we integrate technology in order to make it better, not to define it, but to make it better. And because I'm, your tech girl, I know what all the things do. I'm able to integrate the right solution for our clients so that once the process has been developed or evolved, we're able to say, you know what would take this up a notch? This thing. You know what could fix this solution? And so that's our approach to the digital Jane. And creating that sort of synergy is really important and not something that a lot of people may think about as they're first getting started with their hiring process or with their tool development. It really is, something that we help to bring together all those hard-earned years and stripes and all the things. So, first, I want to start by setting an intention for our time today. I believe that everything that we do should be grounded in intention. Even though this was an open workshop, it was a free workshop. It is still a time investment on your part. So if you can grab a piece of paper, and I want you to write down your intention for your time today. What are you hoping to learn? What are you hoping to gain? Who are you hoping to connect with? It can be whatever your intention is for taking time out of your day to join us. I want to make sure that we're holding space for it and that you have it written down. So, it kind of sets the tone for the rest of the session. And I'll give you a moment to do that. And if you're comfortable, feel free to drop that intention in the chat if you're joining us on the webinar. If you're joining us on LinkedIn, you're welcome to do so as well. My intention for today is to share all that I know confidently, to give, administrators, our operations professionals, our business owners the tools that they need in order to do better work, in order to host better meetings. All right, let's get into it. So, first, I want to start with the pathway to better meeting structure. So, when I'm thinking about how do we get from this point to that point, from point A to point B, I'm thinking about a pathway, right? So, first, we're going to start by identifying a goal for your standing meeting. Like, what is the objective of this meeting? What are we hoping to accomplish? At the end of this meeting together, right? So we'll work together. I'll share some tips that we can talk through to help you to identify for a specific meeting. We're going to narrow it down and focus on a meeting. And then for the second goal today, we want to develop a prep and a post meeting workflow. So if you don't have one already, if you're just like, put the calendar up, I do the thing, we want to make sure that there is some thought and intention around the way that you prep for it, and also taking time to process all that you've learned, all that all the action items, all the next steps, all the follow-ups. You're making time for those things to happen because it sets you up in a great way for the next meeting. And then third, we're going to talk about streamlining your resources and tools. So if you're not really confident in what you're doing currently, let's say you're using a Microsoft Word document. I've been talking a lot about this because there are teams still using Docs. or meeting agendas and sending it from one person to another person to add their notes and then saving it as a doc and then sending it back. And so we want to make sure that we're thoughtful in the tools that we use, but then also in a digital space that there's room for collaboration, right? Using a Microsoft Word document in 2023 doesn't give you that room for solid collaboration, for seamless collaboration. So we're going to talk about that. All right. So here's my little analogy. Unnecessary meetings are like using duct tape to patch up poor collaboration practices. So it can be a temporary fix. It's good enough. You can confidently just ask someone to jump on a call with you. Hey, can we get in a meeting? We need another meeting. Can we just do a meeting? Can we do a meeting? When teams are over meeting like that, it usually means something else is not working well. It usually means that collaboration has not really been established. It usually means that maybe the tools that they're using is not sufficient enough. It usually means that maybe these meetings need to be restructured so that when there are, solid meetings in place, the goals are being reached so that work can happen, right? If I'm on Zoom with you all day, how do I have time to do my work? And so if that is, let's say, the culture of the company that you work with now, it's like, let's just get on a meeting. Let's just get on a meeting. What needs to be established so that in between time, even when you're not on Zoom, you can still collaborate. You can still make sure that everyone is in communication. That can't be your only point of communication, right? And so I say duct tape because it's like it's a quick fix. It's just like this is good enough right now. If I know that this person is accessible, they can jump on the Zoom and I can tap him and I can tap her and we can just all get on a call again. What needs to change in order for you to be able to maybe use your meeting time more intentionally and then also um, collaborate in between so that you're not always having to resort to a meeting as the only way to collaborate or to communicate with your team members. So, for our first goal today, I said we're going to set meetings with a purpose. We want to make sure that we are thinking through before I even ask for your time. I want to have a clear vision of what I need with it. I want to have some objectives, I want to have some goals, I want to have some actions. So, anyone who has worked with me knows I am like team co-working meeting. I am team. I don't just want to sit through a status update. I want to make sure that this time is being used, accordingly. So if I need to screen share, if we're working in a document together in Google Docs, I don't just want to talk about the work and then get off the call and have to do more work. So when the Digital Jane had grown to a team of 6, our weekly debrief calls quickly had to change from a status meeting to an actual session where we would just collaborate on things that needed to be worked on in real time. I would give some company updates, we would give some status updates, but if something needed the bulk of our time to work through together, instead of leaving this call, then sending a follow up, then having to do a bunch of one on ones, and having to do, it's like, how can we use this time together in the best possible way in order to reach our next priority or our next goal? And so before you ask for anyone's time, let's make sure that you have a clear purpose for what this meeting is and that you have action steps forward so that you actually reach that goal. Okay, so here's a quick pause. I want you to, if you have access to your calendar or if you just know your calendar off the top of your head, let's take a look at your standing meeting schedule. And when I say standing meetings, I'm talking about the ones that are recurring, the ones that are either maybe they're once a week or they're once every 2 weeks or they're bi-weekly maybe they're once a month. You want to make sure that you take a look at your schedule, and I want you to pinpoint one that you feel lacks a clear objective. You're like, I get on this call, it's a standing call, I have to do it, but I don't know what we're here for. And if you don't have one, I'll be surprised, because in every team setting there are always meetings that we're like, why is this on my calendar again? What do you need from me? How can I help, right? So let's take a look at your standing meeting schedule. I want you to identify what that meeting is. And then can you pinpoint a goal for this meeting? And if you're comfortable in the chat, just say yes or no. Are you able to pinpoint a clear goal for this meeting? Now, if you can, write it down. If you can't, we're going to go through a quick assessment in the next slide that will help you to identify what is this goal and how can we make it better. Can you pinpoint a goal for this meeting? Unfortunately, no. Okay, so let's talk through it. I think let's do a quick assessment. I think one of the best ways that I have, let me take a step back. So, in my time joining different teams as an operations manager, we would come in and just be kind of rolled into what was already existing. So, we would sit in on meetings because, in the beginning, we're just kind of getting to know everyone. We're listening about their roles, we're listening about the work that they're doing, their status updates, and all that. And we would hear the dysfunction in the meetings that either there wasn't an agenda, um, everyone was just kind of off topic, or someone would tell a joke and then the meeting went on for 10 minutes about the joke. And I'm not saying that team building and that kind of thing is not okay, but without the structure of a meeting, to know that even though what we need to talk about week over week is going to change, having a solid structure for what should be followed is important. And I'm not just talking about company updates. What happened in your department? Tell me what happened in yours. Any action items? What events do we have? We don't want to do that. Like I'm like, we don't. There's other ways to structure your meeting so that you can, move things forward. So what I want to ask you to do is write down what needs to change to better align. Let me say this. Okay. So if your meeting currently doesn't, you don't feel like it has a current purpose or a solid objective or a solid goal, what would need to change in order for it to have it, right? Could it be just like really defining what we're going to cover in this meeting? Maybe not all the right people are a part of the meeting. Maybe it's too many people on the call. Maybe the meeting happens not enough. Maybe it's a once a month meeting and there's always so much to cover that the format is all over the place. If you can, just write that down really quickly, because I feel like that also helps you to kind of brain dump what you foresee to make it better. Like what can I do to make this better? So if I need to change, let's say I have a meeting and it has always been a status meeting. For the last 3 years, it has always been a status meeting. And we always just go through that same kind of flow. What can I do to make this meeting more productive? I would say I would keep some of the status components because that's what my team is used to, and some are, effective. And then I would leave maybe a 30-minute block to work on a common goal with all of the people on the call. So if we have a mutual project, if there is something that, will take a lot of back and forth otherwise, I would probably restructure my meeting to leave room for that type of collaboration. I would probably also, if this meeting feels like it's not really, nothing ever comes of it, I would probably just stop having one person take notes, and like, instead of you just taking notes, let's actually move these action items directly into the project management system, because no one ever goes back into the Google Doc in order to see what they needed to do, right? So there are very subtle things that you can do in order to make these improvements that won't take a whole month, that won't take a whole year. You know what I mean? You can just subtly make these changes. And action items is always the biggest one. Who actually goes back into the Google Doc? Not many people will. There's no accountability around it. So we're going to talk about that a little bit later, because that's one of the biggest things that I've learned is like, if no one is actually taking the actions and moving them where they go so people can see them and work on them and collaborate, and there's, due dates and all of that, then it's not going to be functional for us. So let's keep going because I like to go ahead. Okay. So now that we have hopefully the standing meeting that you need to work on from your schedule, you're like, okay, this is the meeting that needs some improvement. I think this is the goal. Like at the end of each meeting, I would love if we got to this point. We're not quite there yet, but here are the three things, the three steps that I would want to take in order to make it better. And again, these actions that you want to take could be adding time for collaboration or co-working where people are actually working in real time and not just talking about the work. Maybe you're taking away some of the people that are on the call. Maybe you're changing the frequency of the call. These are all things that you can take into consideration as you prepare to make this meeting better. Okay, so for our second goal today, we are going to develop a pre and post meeting workflow. So when I say workflow, I mean there's a series of actions that you always do. There's like a concrete, process around the way that you prepare, and there's a concrete process around the way that you do all of the follow up tasks and things that are associated. So if you're the meeting facilitator, I can already tell that you're probably the one that is making sure that the calendar invite is updated. You're probably responsible for prepping the agenda, probably sending it out to everyone during the call. You may also be the person that's taking the meeting notes. You may also be the person that's responsible for making sure that the Zoom room is all good and that everyone is in there and that letting people in and the whole thing. And then after the meeting, you're probably responsible for making sure that everyone hopefully knows their action items, their next to-dos. You're sending the follow-ups, you're preparing for the next meeting. It's a lot of things to do. And so when you try to wing it, the chances are all of the things are not going to be done. So one of the first things I wanted to say is stop winging your meeting to-dos. It's a lot. It's a lot in addition to all the other things that you do and manage. And also, when you gather people, as you saw me when this webinar started, I had a responsibility of gathering people, of giving you all a seamless way to come in, and forgot or didn't know that the system had a little password situation, right? So as a meeting host or the meeting facilitator, that's something that I could have planned for better. And so when I'm thinking about hosting people or taking some of their time, you want to make sure that there is a seamless way for them to come into the meeting. You want to make sure that there is a seamless way for everyone to collaborate. That you want to make sure that everyone is clear on what they need to do next, because if not, these meetings again are not going to feel productive. So by taking a structured approach, you are able to maximize your productivity. You are able to make sure that everybody else is good. It's almost like inviting someone over to your house for a dinner party or a lunch party. Like, you want to make sure you have all of the things set and ready to go. So don't wing it. So here's just it was hard narrowing down, what we were putting into this today because there's so much I can say. But when we're thinking about your pre-meeting to-dos, you want to make sure you have a clear objective. If this is going to be a new standing meeting that you're bringing to the team, you want to make sure that you are clear on the points that need to be covered and that you outline it so that even a meeting outline of what are all the topics or buckets that need to be covered, that's a loose agenda that you can build out if this is a brand new standing meeting. You then want to prepare an agenda that's realistic. I've seen some agendas that are 2 pages long for a 60-minute meeting, and that's just not realistic. So you want to make sure that you are accounting for how much time, you're going to spend on each part of the session. And then, timing it. You are responsible as a meeting facilitator to make sure that you're staying on task and keeping people on task, knowing when to interject, knowing when to throw it back to, get everybody back on track. All of those things are very important. So agendas, a lot of people feel like are old school, they're played out, but really when you use them the right way, it literally makes sure that you're staying on track and that all the topics are covered. I can't count the number of times when I've set in to assess a team meeting and they're just there with vibes. They're just floating and, kind of going from their memory and covering some things. And, oh, I forgot to mention this. Let me call another meeting because we didn't talk about that. No, again, we're always being thoughtful with the way that we use people's time, and agendas are almost like a roadmap for you to do that. Then you want to gather all necessary information. I am a huge Chrome tab. I don't know if you know that you can create little collapsible tabs where you can organize all of your documents and things that you need to click into. Also hyperlinking your meeting agenda. We'll have so many links just in our agenda so that we can easily click into it while we have our clients' attention. So all of those little extra things are best practices to make sure that you're ready to facilitate the meeting and you're ready to click in and out of things that you need to. So again, your agenda is essentially like a roadmap. And then, of course, sending out the agenda is important, making sure people have time to either review it or to prepare for if they have to speak or if they have to share something. Giving them the heads up is always helpful. I love live meeting agendas, so we'll talk through some best practices for, having a live meeting agenda in just a little bit because sending it out becomes a nice to do, but everyone always has access to the most up to date version when you use a cloud based product. Any questions about pre meeting to dos? Questions, thoughts, concerns? Feel free to drop them in the chat. And then post meeting to do. So no one ever thinks about what happens after the meeting, right? Because you're just relieved that it's over. So when it comes to your post meeting, I personally, if the meeting is 90 minutes, I want to hold a 30-minute block. Let me give myself a 10-minute stretch break, grab some water, do a little something. And then I want to keep a little time for myself to just sit with the information. When you're in overload from one meeting and then you have to jump right into another one, it doesn't give you time to process the information. And I'm sorry, that's just not, it's not good for you. It's only so long you'll be able to sustain that kind of thing because your brain is still trying to probably process what you need to do next, what you just talked about, all of that while you're now on another call. And so if you notice yourself like feeling depleted, you're feeling heavy, wait, I'm getting off into another thing, but I'm just gonna let it ride. Give yourself time between your meetings so that you can process the information and so that you can do some of those action items. Because when you don't, you're just moving on from one thing into the next, into the next, into the next, and then never making time to actually go through the process of like your post meeting work. So the first thing I want to say is, take time to prepare your summary, your takeaways. For us in our agenda, we're actively taking, those kind of notes while the call is happening. That's always helpful for me. But if you have to do some sort of roundup for your team, I've seen it where maybe the highlights from the meeting is dropped as like a status note inside of Slack, or this is like summarized. You summarize the meeting and have to drop it for the people that weren't able to make it. Whatever you have to do, you want to make time. We want to make time to be able to do that after the meeting. And then following up on action items. This is the biggest thing for me. Like the point of a meeting is for us to talk, for us to share space, but it's also for us to get this work done, right? So for me, I personally prefer to use ClickUp Docs for our meetings, our meeting agendas, and then all of the action items can be tagged into the project management system within that same doc, right? And so it's a whole thing, and it makes it so easy to not have to go back in, to not have to, because the person that is responsible for taking the notes can actively create the task as we're talking about them right into the system. And then if you need to archive your meeting stuff, right? I think after a certain time, you have to do away with some resources. So you don't need Zoom meetings forever. You don't need, your meeting agendas or notes for forever. If you're keeping them for a quarter, that's normally good enough. If you're going to backlog it and move it into Drive, there just has to be some time to kind of go through the process of, working through those items. So those are the top 3 post meeting to dos that I suggest. Really, just making time to do it. And even if you're like, girl, no, at least give yourself a 20-minute block between calls when possible, just to process the information, just to give yourself space, just to, send your follow-up email, whatever it is. Like, give yourself some time and watch how it changes the game with being on Zoom all day. All right, we're to our third goal. So for goal number 3, we just want to streamline our resources. We want to make sure that we are clear on what's being used. We're not using a bunch of different things. Some team members are sending you a Google Doc. Some team members are using Microsoft Word documents. It's just like, let's decide what the process is and let's stick to it. If we are tagging our action items directly into the project management system, let's do that every single time. If I need to roll in admin in order to be able to do that, let's make sure that we're sticking with something, because it's enough to have to be on a call. It feels like too much when it's like, and then the planning or um, the process itself feels chaotic, right? So one of the things that I want to say is always use a cloud-based document. I don't care who, what, when, where, why, how old the company is. We always want to use a cloud-based document. I linked some examples here so I can show, but let's see if I can. I may have to. Yeah. Okay. I'll do this. Okay. Let's see. So I want to show you this one because I think bigger. It still looks pretty small. But this is your typical, just a quick typical meeting agenda. It is your, status updates, all of that. But the fact that it's in a Google Doc means if someone is actively in here now and they're making updates now, I would be able to see it right now. And I think that is the most important thing, right? We want to make sure that the tools that we use are cloud based because it allows for that real time collaboration to happen. The second one that I wanted to show is our. Let me go back to for your Alice Boy. Okay, here we go. So this is what a ClickUp document then looks like whenever it decides to load. So ClickUp Documents, this is my project management system. But as you can see, I had this meeting in particular has um, project like buckets. So when we were talking about workflow and role planning, this is all of the notes and all of the things that we were discussing. You see hyperlinks in here. But once we got down to our action items, you can't see them because it's private. But these are our actual tasks that are linked to the project management system. So if this wasn't in a private view, I could click into this and go straight into my project management system tasks. So when I say develop a workflow that works for you, being on a call, taking notes in real time for our implementations, and then also being able to just add our tasks directly into our project management system from the agenda is super helpful for us for the type of work that we do. And as you can see over here in the side panel, we keep our agendas for 3 months. So all of my agendas from January, all of the ones from February, all the ones from March, for this client, in every single one, we keep them because sometimes you need to look back. Sometimes you need to see what was discussed, and all of it matters. And you can see that each of them have, action items. So that's what I mean when I say develop a process that works for you. And a cloud-based document, it really does help you to be able to kind of develop that sort of workflow for you. Yes, check out ClickUp Docs immediately after this call. Immediately after this call, because it will change the game for you. You can share. It's important that you have a shareable link, and with the ClickUp Docs, you can either share one page or a whole collection like what I just showed you. So yes, definitely check that out. And then again, in the shareable cloud-based format, we want to make sure that doc link added directly to your calendar invite, added to the description section of your calendar invite, so that every time someone is getting ready to join this meeting, they can easily click into the meeting agenda because it's live, right? I can see everything that you just updated this morning before the call, and it's easily accessible. So even if you do drop it into Slack, even if you do, schedule an email to go out to the team with the updated or refreshed agenda, keep the link the same so that if you forget to do it, it still goes out to everyone. It's really helpful. So if we have a client for 3 months, I'll literally keep that agenda exactly the same. The agenda link is always the same because the recurring calendar is the same. And it really does just help you to keep everyone on track and informed. And then next, I would say add action items directly into your project management tool if you can. If it can happen during the meeting, do it immediately after. I think action items die in Google Docs. Don't tell anyone I said that, but it's just my personal thought that a lot of times no one ever goes back in there to see what's happening after the meeting has ended. And then last but not least, do you need a repository for meeting agendas? So I just showed you ours that we keep agenda for a course of 90 days, whatever our engagement term is. I keep all of those agendas so that I can always reference them back. If I had a longer term client that was maybe like a year, maybe my process would be for each quarter, I kick off a new one, I have it, and then I backlog the ones that I no longer need. Okay. That's it. Oh my goodness, it's so hard fitting everything into it's hard fitting all the things into a 45-minute session, but we made it. So if you have any questions, please feel free to drop them now. And I am going to also click into, let's see. Any questions, comments, concerns? I'm having a time of my life on this live stream. You all, I'm going to get so good at this. I promise, this is just the beginning of me learning how to use it, but I am going to get good at it. I am excited about this. So we just got a question in the chat. What is our process for canceling meetings? So if for some reason you need to cancel a meeting or postpone a meeting, I just like to send out a notice. Just let whatever your main method of communication is with the person, just go ahead and send out a notice to them and let them know that the meeting has been canceled. And then maybe suggest alternate times when you are available to meet, or ask them for, times that they're able to meet. It really does depend on what works best for the situation, but normally give 24-hour notice when possible. And then, just ask them what other times will work for you this no longer works. And, from a tech standpoint, if you need to cancel one meeting in a recurring series, it'll just say do you want to just cancel this one, and then the rest of the series will continue to go forward. Thank you for that. All right. Any other questions? Okay, so we have a service. If you're like, girl, I have no idea what I need to do or how to structure this, we developed a service called Better Meetings a Month. And it really does truly take us 3 weeks in order to go through the process of auditing meetings, meaning we're sitting in on up to 3 standing meetings, not in a creepy way, but, just, being active to listen in and to take notes on what's working, what isn't working. We then have a strategy call to talk through what needs improvement and how those improvements can be made. And then we refine the meeting structure for you. We'll redo all of your templates and all of the resources that you need in order to be able to facilitate these meetings, we take care of that for you. And then we also develop a guide so that you can further train like other team members or, maybe future hires on how this is all ran together. So if you're interested, I can drop the information in the chat. But our Better Meetings Month is limited engagement. We can only take so many at a time, but I'm giving priority to anyone that tuned into the live stream today. Whether you're on LinkedIn, you joined us in the actual webinar, I am giving that to you. I have another question. I'm going to answer in a second. What did I do? Okay, there we go. Okay, so in addition to, if you're like, I don't need the service, but I do want to come to another training, we have our next workshop on August the 30th at 4. We're actually going to restructure the format of your meetings together. Again, I tried to squeeze as much as I could into the 45-minute session today as an introductory, workshop, but we want to make sure that if these meetings do need to be restructured, I'll give you the tools that you need. We can do it together. You can ask me questions. And this one will be a little bit more of like a working open office hours so that we can actually get some work done. You can have it done by the end of the session together. And then also, I'm excited to announce that our next SOP workshop is going to be happening in September. So September 20th, registration is not open yet, but I just wanted to drop a quick little, it's coming. It's coming. It's coming. And thank you. Thank you so much for joining us. I think I'm 5 minutes over, so thank you for the extra time. You will receive a follow-up email from us within 24 hours. If you purchase the resource bundle, we're going to send that out within 24 hours, but everyone is going to get the goal setting worksheet as well. And if you have questions, if you're like, I don't know what I need to do next, send us an email or check out our Better Meetings package on our a la carte tab of our workshop, of our website. And then we have one more question. Do you decide how long meetings are, or do you finish the agenda no matter the time it takes? So depending on how much stuff needs to be covered, the first test is like a guess, right? You're like, I don't really know how long this is going to take us. Let's start with an hour. If this meeting is consistently going over 15 minutes or 30 minutes, move it to a 90-minute block, right? And then from there, if it's not, if you notice that you still have too many agendas, if it feels like it's too much for one session, you may need to break it up. It may need to be a more frequent meeting, or it may, need to be a longer meeting. It depends. But I personally don't schedule meetings over 90 minutes. If we get to the end of 90 minutes and, we're almost there and it's like we're about to run out of time, let's cover as much as we possibly can and then roll it over into the next meeting unless it's priority. Then we'll schedule like a 30-minute follow-up or something. But being able to keep your meetings on track is important, but sometimes it really just is that much stuff to cover. So it depends, but start with an hour. If it goes over, you're noticing that this may be a trend based on the workload or the amount of things that you need to cover, you can adjust based on what works best for the group and everyone's availability. All right, y'all. Thank you so much for joining. My name is Alice Foy of the Digital Jane. I really appreciate your time and your patience as we work through our first webinar little setup. It'll be better next time, so don't count us out. And take care. I will send out that email tomorrow before this time, and let us know if you need anything in the future. Bye.